So many faces I know and students I don't yet know, but it's wonderful to have you here to join us to hear from Channy Chhi Laux speak today. So today is the final event of the semester for our USF SWIG program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice. My name is Alexis Herr, for those of you who don't already know me. I'm a comparative genocide historian here at USF. And given tonight's focus on genocide in Cambodia for Genocide Awareness Month, it makes sense to first honor our own genocide history in California that dates back to the gold rush in 1846. So we acknowledge our presence on the unceded land of the indigenous Ohlone communities to pay our respects to these traditional caretakers and elders past, present, and emerging. It is our intention that this acknowledgement plays a role, however small, in a much larger process of confronting the past to create a not yet realized future rooted in justice. Confronting past genocides is never easy. Genocide studies has proven, without a doubt, that genocide is a universal history. It's not just something that happens over there. Right? It has happened in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. It has happened right where we stand. Its victims and perpetrators have been Buddhists, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and more. And study after study has proven, time and time again, that genocide is not the result of evil or insanity. Rather, it is done by ordinary people and rationalized in ways that make it a uniquely human phenomenon. Confronting genocide involves confronting upsetting truths about us as a species. Perhaps that is one reason why it is so rarely done. For example, according to a December 2024 study out of Governor Gavin Newsom's office, only a quarter of all California middle and high schools students have access to genocide education in their schools. This is despite California being the first state to mandate genocide education, and yet we still fail to teach about it. Here at USF, I have to say, I don't think we're doing too much better. There's only one course dedicated solely to the study of genocide, and that is JSSJ 136, Holocaust and Genocide. The very existence of this course wasn't a given. Prior to the establishment of the Jewish Studies program in 1977, there wasn't any class on genocide on campus. In 2008, we established the SWIG program in Jewish Studies and Social Justice. We made history by becoming the first academic program worldwide to formally link Jewish studies with social justice. And we view genocide education as key to this mission. And for the past 10 years, we have made it a reality on campus. Social justice requires that we confront the hard realities so that we can try and do better. And that is why we are here tonight. We gather today as a community and a campus to honor the victims and survivors of the Cambodian genocide. We are thrilled to be joined by Channy Chhi Laux, who has kindly agreed to share her story of survival and perseverance with us today. Ms. Laux is a survivor of the Cambodian genocide. She was 13 years old when the Khmer Rouge perpetrators, led by Pol Pot, took over the country in 1975. From 1975 until 1979, Channy endured starvation, horrendous working conditions, sickness, and repeated separations from her family. In June of 1979, Channy arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska as a refugee. This is the part that I find insane, but after 40 years of no schooling and not knowing a word of English, she attended Lincoln High School. After graduating, she went on to earn a BS from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and a Master's of Science in Applied Mathematics from Santa Clara University. That's also where she met her husband, I will say. Channy worked in Silicon Valley as an engineer in the aerospace and biotech industries for 30 years. In 2000, Yes, in 2018, Channy published her memoir, Short Hair Detention, which is right over there, which went on to receive multiple awards, including the 2018 Best Indie Book Award and Nebraska's 2018 Book Award. Most recently, she opened Encore Chef, one of the finest Cambodian restaurants in the Bay Area. And in 2002, I believe, she founded the Cambodian Genocide Resource Center with her husband, Kent, a nonprofit committed to using survivor testimony as a vehicle to teach about genocide. So we are here today to honor the history of Cambodians and to remember the genocide that happened. To help us do that, I'd like to invite Channy to come join us to share her story.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for taking time to be here today. And exactly 50 years ago, the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia. And that significant point of being, left, it happened 50 years ago. Every time I talk this month, it took me back to the first step of suffering. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Cambodia. Before all that killing and all that suffering happened, I wanted to share with you what's Cambodia like before all that happened. Cambodia is a self-sufficient country, meaning that we don't need other country to help us. You might think, oh, third world country, they always need help. But in Cambodia, no. And I remember when, as a junior high student, I remember learning about what our country export to other country. And we export spice, comport pepper, and we export rice and fruit and rubber. And I remember clearly that even these little things that I learned at school, I was so proud of it. That we are, we have something that we, if you walk through Cambodia during that time, you'll never see anybody starving. You might see different rich and poor, and some have more than others, but you never see people starving. It was a peaceful country, and we're proud of our culture and heritage. It was a country of great opportunity, just like America. If you work hard, you will get somewhere, right? And back then, Cambodia even opened up the door to receive refugees. And one of that refugees is my grandfather. He escaped from communist China to come to Cambodia. And because of his status as a refugee in that country during that time, there's no program to help refugees. So he started off by himself and with people that he worked for. He eventually, because of his status, he couldn't send every children to go to school. And because my father was very good in help selling things for him, put food on the table, my father never got to go to school. But he worked hard, and eventually he was able to have his own business, import, export. I remember he export orange to Vietnam, for the American soldier. And he was able to provide us, family of 5 children, a very comfortable life. We had, in our home, we lived in a 2-story brick home, and we had cars and even TV and refrigerator. Back then, it's, you might say, privilege, right? But because of his hard work, I never had to experience what he experienced when he was young. But all, And you know, for me, my life in Cambodia during that time is not that much different than people who grew up in this country. I learned French, I listened to French music, I listened to American rock and roll, and I even have bell-bottom jeans. And the high, I don't know if you guys familiar know, but the high handle bike with the banana seat. I have those, my mom bought it for me. But all of that turned upside down when the war started. And the war started because there's a Vietnam War overflowed into Cambodia, and a group of Cambodian guerrilla called themselves Khmer Rouge rose up against the government in power. And the Khmer Rouge was backed by Communist China. And the government in power at the time was backed by American. It was the first time that Cambodian experienced civil war. And it went on for 5 years. And in 1975, when the American troops withdrew from the Southeast Asia, from Vietnam and Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge took over the country. What they did for the following 4 years is a crime against humanity. They killed at least 2 million Cambodians. And I was 13 years old. They kill because you have different ideology, because they want to revenge, because they want to control. All started from hatred. And they were able to control us right away, because as soon as they took over the country, they took us away from people that we love, home and places that we're familiar and comfortable with. And we have no way to carry things with us except what we can carry with our own hand. So instantly, I mean within days, they tell us what to do. And because we don't have food, you know, that's how they control us. And once they get a control of us, they're starting to target different groups, right? If your family was making a living without a physical labor, you are considered enemy, because they believe in their succeed in running the country as part of their success was to revenge over you, right? If you're a teacher, just imagine, you know, every day, you know, people who go to work in the office, never break a sweat, you would be gone. Under their eyes, you're a crook. You take advantage of the poor. And in case of my family, we were targeted because my father was a businessman, right? And it didn't matter that he started off with a poor young man. You know, they claimed to fight for the poor to, you know, have the same equity for everybody. But that didn't matter, that my father, you know, was brought up poor and worked his way to that level. So the fact that right before they took over, he was a businessman, we were targeted. And everything he worked hard for was confiscated almost instantly. So for 4 years, my family and I lived through physical and emotional torture that I never wanted to happen to anybody. Nobody should ever even experience it, you know. And this doesn't happen, and you know, only a certain part of the year, or maybe it happened 1 month and the rest of the year was okay. This happened continuously. You know, if you're talking about starvation, you heard, you know, you've seen picture on TV, maybe sometime how people go through starvation. You saw how they look, but mentally you can understand why they look like that. They must be tired. They must be hungry. But those are not the same when you're in it. When you're in it, starvation is painful. Starvation is not a feeling of being hungry or wanting food. Starvation is painful. Cramp. A cramp of starvation, it felt like your stomach ingested itself. Your internal twist and turn into a knot. And all you could do is drooling because you got nothing to eat. And then you start losing weight. And losing weight is it's not just appearance. You get tired, you're so tired. And when you sit down, it hurts. When you lay down on that hard bamboo floor, it's painful. When you roll around, it feels like pinching. And starvation also affects us emotionally. We feel shame for doing what we're doing that we want to do. We don't want to let people know what we did to survive, even though it's not our fault. We feel like an animal. We don't feel like we deserve to live because we don't behave with dignity. We lose hope, you know. I remember our ration was reduced to like 1 tablespoon per person per day. And that doesn't mean that you just sit there and maybe waiting for food. Even with that ration, you still have to go to work. And you work without any break. So I remember that, at one point I was thinking that this is it, the Khmer Rouge had gone so far because the world would not stand and watch the suffering, We're gonna get help because who would let the whole country suffer like that? They actually emptied the city and everybody moved, lived in a small commune. And I remember hope that somebody would come and help us, and that hope was never, happened. Then I thought about my family, aunts and uncle who had escaped the communists and went to France. They will, do something to help us. They will come, they would get involved into some kind of organization and save us. That didn't happen either, right? And then you lose faith. You said, I remember thinking, what have I done? In Buddhism is what happened to you, what goes around comes around. What happened to you is what you've done in the past life. What you're doing right now will carry on to the future. And I remember that, my parents always been good parents. They even, take care of people, feed people, give them job, all the good things that I see my parents do. Why did I deserve this way? Why do we deserve to be punished like that? So I lost all faith. And all I want was to die. All I want was to finish suffering. When you suffer so much, dying is freedom. And I remember wishing that I never get up in the morning. And when I wake up in the morning, I swear to God, But then, you know, at some point, I want to live again. You know, every time that I've gone through sickness and starving, and I felt like this can't get any lower, and I'm proving wrong. You know, I keep proving wrong. Things keep getting worse. And the time that I want to live again is when I was in the camp. They took me away from my parents. That was the worst blow I ever felt. I remember working in the field, and the soldier would walk at the levee and point it out to us, you know, we're working in the field. They called us comrade. You know, come follow us. And by that time, my older brother and sister was already taken away from our family to join the labor camp. And I thought I was safe from it, but they came back to get me after 2-3 weeks later. And I remember all of us, about 13, 12 years old, would follow the soldier without any pleading, like ask any question or beg to stay with our parents, nothing. We would follow their instructions just like we were being hypnotized. And I remember so desperately to have my dad look at me, you know. But I see all the parents look at their children, you know, follow the soldier, walk to the levee. And I'm there, and my dad would just keep working. He continued to work. He kept cutting the rice stalk and go back and forth between the pile of rice stalk and the field. But he wouldn't look at me. And I remember pleading for him to look at me, and you know, I saw my aunt, and it's all mental. You know, mentally, I told my aunt, you know, tell my dad that I love him. Because through all the starvation, there's certain things that he did to me, you know, hurt me emotionally and physically. And I was so angry with him that I stopped talking to anybody for months. And people would call me that, what's wrong with you? Are you mute? And it was just like, when I stop talking, when I'm so, you know, into that stress, into that mode, when I stop talking to people, it feels peaceful. I wasn't attacked anybody. I stopped getting angry at my dad, but I still like to be quiet. You know, it changed you. You know, talking about changing, I know I'm feeling like I'm all over the place, but these are the things that pop up in my mind, you know. One of the things that it change you when you go through this experience, never have enough to eat and stuff. One of the things that changed me is the fact that my hair never grew for 4 years, right? Not even an inch. And so you might say, well, I know you don't like it. It's not about look. It's about how you assess yourself. Will you ever have a kid? Will you be normal again? Will you able to be back if the things change? You kind of give up. And when I was in labor camp, the very first thing they told us was all girls need to get their hair cut. And the first labor camp, and I remember thinking what my mom told me and thinking that she's wrong. We have no control of ourselves. We have no control of our destiny. We have no control of anything if we can't even control our hair, how we want to keep it. You know, after starving, after being taken away from my parents, I question myself, why is a haircut make a big difference? What does it matter? It doesn't even hurt, but it kills you. It kills you like you cannot make a difference. You can't even decide what you should look like. I wanted to live again when I was in the camp because I didn't think that I could survive. And I want to live again. Somehow my wish is to be comforted by my mother, the lady who gave me life. And not only for my selfishness of yearning for her, but to give her the right of caring for her baby. That, to me, is inhumane. When people say that's inhumane, that to me is inhumane. You don't even get the right to care for your baby. That's inhumane. The simple thing that all life should be able to do, you don't get that. So it's really kind of hard to really share with you the 4 years of suffering, you know, in 15 minutes. But one of the things that I never get over, you know, when I finish my book, when I was working on the book, I keep reviewing the book for publishing. You keep reviewing it again and again until you actually stop crying, except a couple places. And I want to share with you in that one place that I almost afraid to even review. And that was like 3 years after, you know, endurance, living under the Khmer Rouge rule. I decided that I follow my heart and I don't care what they're gonna do to me. I don't care the consequences. And so I escaped the labor camp to be with my mother. And I was found by the soldier. And one of them said, I found her, like, you know, they claimed their prize. And it was hot summer. I was hiding in the bush. He demanded me to come out. And I didn't listen. I looked at him like I didn't understand him. And he gets so angry because he always had people listen to him, whatever he said, right? And it was not like I'm challenging him, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to play that game anymore. It wasn't that I was brave. It was, I don't want to do it. You know, I don't care about the consequences. And he was so angry, he reached into the bush and grabbed me and literally throw me into the dirt floor. And the dirt in Cambodia in the summer is hard, it's like cement. And I don't think I cried. I didn't cry. But I feel, you know, I feel the yanking and the kick, yanking on my arm and kick on my ribs. I felt those, but they weren't sharp pain. They were just like an impact. And I couldn't see anymore. I could hear all the chaos around me. I couldn't see anymore. And I remember, maybe it's just my comfort. I felt like an angel float above me and comfort me and pet me. Every time I got an impact, I feel like an angel tell me it's okay. But then I heard a cry out loud. Plead for the soldier to stop. She said, please stop, don't hurt my baby. And you know, even crying is brave, because if you're crying in the communist Cambodia, that means you don't like what they're doing. If you don't like what they're doing, you're the enemy. So my mom was brave. And I remember thinking that my mom cannot see this. I came here to be with her, not to have her watch them hurt her baby. I fought hard to be on my feet. And when I'm able to walk, they took me away. And I felt so ashamed that I was selfish. I felt so ashamed that I didn't care about the consequences to my family, not to me. But you know, all this time, the hardest thing is not the physical pain, or even the pain emotionally that I endure, but the pain of witness how your family endure. You know, if I walk, you know, today, when I'm in the street, or when you look at me before you hear my story, you say that you have no idea what I've been through, because physically I'm normal. My hair grows back, fortunately. But mentally, as long as I can remember, the pain will always be with me. In fact, as I get older, it gets harder. Because when I was younger, my mother was with me, and I even remember telling her that, you know, you should focus on the good thing. We're lucky to be in this country. We survived. Look at all your children had, you know, the accomplishment, and you were a single mom. I keep telling her all the good things that she had done for us. But sometimes you see that she was sad, you know, and she wanted to talk about what happened during that Khmer Rouge time. But now that she's gone, I understand, because I felt what she felt. She was no longer here to protect me from that feeling. So it is harder for me as I get older with that, you know, the only one person who endured with me, who understands me. You know, sometimes I wish that, I wish I told her that your cry that bring me back to you. I never tell her. It's not something you talk about, right? But even when I think about it, it was just kind of hard to even bring it up. And you know, she may never want to talk about it. It's that personal. Even though we see each other, it's that personal. So I felt like things that I put in my memoir is something, a secret almost, that I share between what I experienced and the reader. Because after all this time, when I talking about, you know, my experience, there's certain thing my reader would never ask me, because it's that personal. So I wanted, you know, sometimes I thought about genocide when I when people talk about genocide, different genocide, if you don't talk to the survivor or the victim, you feel like genocide is, to some historian, is defined by an account of inhumane act that a perpetrator committed to a victim. Stats of death and life that's gone, and people are talk about who's doing what to whom, and they wanted to get into the mindset of the leader that caused all this. But to the survivor, a genocide will always be with us as long as we live. The suffering it's a memory, a painful memory that will always be with us. And unknowingly passed to our children. And maybe to strangers who hear about our story. But more interestingly, or more inspiring for me, is what you guys think about genocide. And what can we do about it? I think sometimes people felt like it's a story. It happened, it's history, but there's nothing they can do about it. Or they make excuses why it happened, but it won't happen again. And they feel like they can't do anything about it, But I really believe that you can. You can, the simple thing that you can do, even when you get out of here, you can think about it, right? And that simple act is a pledge, a promise that you will make to yourself that you will never involve in any act of hatred, because all genocide started with hatred. It's the same pledge, the same promise that you're willing to make to yourself that I asked you. That make it worth it for me to relive the painful memory. This simple pledge that you will never get involved in the act of hatred will shape your future and the future of your children. You can't change what happened to me. You can't change what happened in the past, but you can shape the future. And that started with a pledge, a promise you make to yourself that you will never get involved in any act of hatred. Thank you.
So we are now going to turn to Q&A. I'm going to open the floor for any audience questions that you may have. I knew you were going to ask a question.
Hi. Hello. Is it on?
Can you hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear good. Thank you. Yeah.
I know, but let's use the mic just in case.
Okay. Are there many spaces or opportunities that you have to connect with other people that have been victims of the Cambodian genocide? Or do you feel like you've gone through this pretty solo? Is there like a space where you can connect to other people that relate to your story?
There's a whole bunch of survived the genocides here and some of us, go through it at different age, different experience. We hardly talk about the suffering, but we do talk about suffering, but at the same time, more like it's funny how it's not like a comforting, but it's more joke almost. It's like, oh, that's nothing compared to what I did, went through. And then you start to think about things that you wouldn't do, but you would do it anyway. It's hard, like, for example, I'll give you an example. Remember during the genocide, if we could act like that again, we would save a lot of money. And I think it's just a Cambodian way also. And I think also what helped is the way we believe our religion. What goes around comes around. And a lot of time, all the people that survive, some of them might be a perpetrator, right? But I strongly believe that revenge is not a way to end the suffering. It's actually make it worse. You don't know if they're a perpetrator or not, but sometimes you think they might be because of the way they act or what they said, or maybe the fact that everybody in their family survived and they have big family. Just an example, right? But the way we believe our religion help us, and help me anyway. And you get to the point that you open up yourself to be close to this family or this person, then you start to forget about they could be a perpetrator or not, because they're human, just like you. And then you get to a certain level, I'm speaking from my personal experience, I get to a certain level of building a relationship with this person that not 100% sure at the beginning. Then you get so close to this person, then you start to ask God to forgive this person. When once in a while that thought crossed your mind that, she might be from a family of perpetrator. I think for me also the fact that I kind of like a brain dump and share my story in the memoir, I felt like I have it's out there. So when I learned that I might have a medical problem, I walked to the doctor's office feeling like, and that the memoir was one of the reasons it made me feel like I'm okay. I've done the best I can. My story's out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, perfect. So, I just want to...
Wait, I'm not sure it's on. Jazzy, I'm trying to... Thank you.
Sorry, I speak really softly. I'll try to speak louder.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. It was like, you're so brave for that. One thing I did want to ask was that you did talk about how, you're Buddhist and kind of I think it's the idea of karma and kind of what your past actions did. Like how your past actions lead to what you're experiencing now kind of stuff. And I wonder how did your view or your feelings towards your religion change over time, and how did you end up getting back
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a emotion. You gone through a terrible thing, you say, fate. Why, if you believe what goes around come around. But, like you said, it's like nobody should ever experience such a terrible thing. But then, like for example, I could have been gone, but somehow I was safe. Then you fear, you fear for the higher being that you cannot explain. Like I'll give you an example. One time my family was sitting there, didn't have anything to eat, and when you don't have anything to eat, there's no conversation. And in our mind, in my mind, I was thinking about who's going to die first, which one of us is going to die first, right? And we sit quietly, and all of a sudden I hear this noise. And all this noise, all this splash along, next to the hut. And it turned out to be a big, big white fish, the biggest fish we ever had. So on my next breath, I say thanks to God, right? So it's not always one thing, that you lose faith, or you lose faith. Things to remind you that you should have faith.
Hi, my name is Kamala. I just want to thank you first off for coming to speak today. Well, I can try, it's a bit cracked. But my question was, what do you think it was that kept you alive during all those hardships and suffering for so many years? Like, where did you find that inner strength to keep going?
I honestly think that when you go through such a terrible thing, your emotion is strong. You get to a space and feel and understand yourself that just emotion alone can keep you alive. And that emotion that I had to keep me alive was wanting to take care of my mother. All this time, I don't wanted her to lose her kid, not knowing what happened to them, because it happened it happened to many family. They lose their children, they don't even know what happened, or where it happened, or when it happened. To me, it was, I had to live for her. So, also interesting to, when I think about what happened when I wrote my memoir, it wasn't like I'm sitting down and then write everything. It was over years that I collect memories, and usually painful memory. But when I start to put things together in a chronological and chapters by chapters, I start to remember good things. And those good things are so powerful. A complete stranger reach out to help you. I dedicate one chapter for a soldier nurse that helping me, hide me from, the nurse who hide me from the soldier, which there was two of them. So she's taking risk. She risked her life to hide me from the soldier. And so things like that, when you put into a book, you remember, But on the flash, you usually just remember the terrible thing. And then also, part of when emotion gets to that deep, and it's not like I'm strong, but I think it's human being. I remember when I looked through the notes in the book and read through, and I said, that's true, like I never cry because of suffering. I cry because of love. I cry because I miss my mother, and I cry because somebody, an old lady, a complete stranger, asked me how I was. Or she said, how old are you? And that instantly made me feel like I must have scared her because of the way I look. I lose so much weight, right? And she said, how old are you? And I couldn't talk because just by asking alone, And then she said, do you know where your parents are? And that just made me cry. And I realized that, you know, when you're in such a terrible thing, you fight back by expression. You don't cry because you're suffering. You cry because of love. Yeah.
I was curious to know what pushed you to make the book. Was there moments in your life where you were ready to talk about what happened to you and come out of the silence?
You know, my grandfather escaped from China, and I always wanted to know what happened to him. Why did he escape? How many families did he leave behind? And I only hear bits and pieces, and I get so frustrated because I think it's so important. You know, as a young girl in Cambodia, I'm interested in history, I'm interested in geography, but and I remember even before the communists started saying, if I have to experience things like that, I'm going to make sure my children know. So during the genocide, every time I overcome an adversity, that was the first thing in my mind. I wanted to make sure my children understand what it was like to experience things like this, and they appreciate life. And that was, and it, you know, it was just a promise I made to myself. And when I came to this country, even my own language, I was becoming illiterate because I haven't read and write for 4 years. So I have no hope that I would even publish a memoir like this, but just collecting notes. Right? So, and I collect notes, and I took time off from work when I had my first child for about 4 years. And then I got distracted with toddlers and all that. And then it's a stop and go thing. And I took another summer off before she turned 13. I took some time off to complete this memoir. It's a gift for her, for my daughter. And I wanted to tell her that when I was your age, this happened to me, right? But I didn't finish it. And then when my mom passed away, I was into chapter 6, and I read for her in the intensive care. So when she's gone, I told my boss, you either give me a sabbatical leave of absence or I quit, because that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't intend to publish it. My husband, Kent, right there, encouraged me that it needs to be shared. So, and I think if I was to finish the book, like even 5 years earlier, it would be a completely different book, because there's certain things that I don't want my experience to impact my children. I wanted them to read and tell me which one they don't want to share. If they in high school, you know, 5 years earlier, there's a thing they don't want their friend to know about their mom. But they told me that put it out. So, what I had in that memoir, I hide nothing. I realized that it's more important than me. What happened to my family, you could say what happened to Cambodia, but what can happen in human it's not just Cambodia, it's not just my family, it's not just me. So it's much more important to tell it like it is, like it was, than to protect myself from it, than to aggrandize. But there's still things that I felt so guilty, even though it's not my fault. I put things in there that I wish to hide. I'm not proud of.
I just have to say I'm so grateful that you wrote this book, because this book led me to find you. And because of you writing this book, we were able to create a curriculum that is known in classrooms throughout the state of California for students to hear your story, to learn about this thing that happened, that keeps happening. It's so powerful. It's amazing how you wrote it at the start for your children, and it has impacted so many children. It's incredible. So I'm so grateful you did it.
Thank you. I have to share with you when I first met Alexis. I walked in the room, she said, "Oh, I just love your book. It's so beautiful." And I said, "Oh, finally!" Somebody said it's beautiful. Because it is. It's that extreme emotion of suffering and love. And I think, she saw it, A lot of times I express how I felt about my mother, or my mother was, how do you say, sacrificed herself for the family, certain thing that she did, right? So it was not all emotion in there, it was not all suffering, it was a lot of strong love in there, right? Yeah.
Totally.
Thank you.
I wish I could have met your mother. I really wanted to meet your mom. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello. Hello. Not working. I'll still speak English. I'm a professor of about 20 people here in a class I teach called Forgiving the Unforgivable, the Ethics of Apologies. And I wanted to know, you've touched on this in different ways, but more directly I wanted to know what you think about forgiving people or communities for unforgivable actions.
Yeah. I think similarly, I usually talk about revenge. And when you revenge, that means you're not forgiving, right? There's, among all of us, different ideology, different race, different religion. We have a strong commonality, and that's human. We need to focus on that commonality more than the difference. And forgiving is part of not revenge. Because I strongly believe that even what happened in Cambodia, they had the trial. And I felt like, oh, what do you put in that trial? Except maybe the top 10 people that leading all this to happen. But if you really want the trial, you have to take almost half of the country, because they were maybe by fear, they did what they had to do. And we have to forgive, because if we don't forgive, what do? Persecute them, treat them the way they treat us. And what are the children's going to do? Revenge our children, and then the next generation revenge another generation. it's never ending. So we have to forgive. And that it's possible. I really think it's possible. I remember when the soldier beat me up, I know in myself that if things turn around, you are the first one that I wanted to inflict pain. Maybe worse than that. I'm sure I can do it. But right after the communists took over, I saw how a perpetrator was beaten by the regular people. And the guy was taller than most of the people, and he was beaten unconsciously by their father who lost their children, by their brother who lost a sibling, sister. He was beaten about 10 feet from me, and I remember telling myself, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to hunt for that person, the soldier that beat me unconsciously in front of my mother. I will stop. And it's possible. Revenge is hatred. And you cannot fight hatred with hatred.
I have a question in the back. So I just want to say, one, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I think it's very commendable what you talk about forgiveness. But I noticed how important the relationship is with you and your mother and how sacred that is, and your own relationship with your kids. So I wanted to ask, what are you doing now to really honor that kind of love and sacredness with your own kids, and to really honor your mother through surviving all of this?
That last part, can you repeat that last part, please?
Yeah, just like what are you doing to honor the love and sacredness of the relationship with your mom, with your kids, and then, through just surviving all of this on your own?
I take time to be with you guys, and to be very, literally. I run a restaurant, and running a small family restaurant, it's very demanding, and allocated my time once a month to be available and to be available in person, virtually, and my goal is to get other survivors to help us share their story. My story is just one story. And I think that, to remember the soul that's gone. When I talk in front of you, many times I remember I was supported by the spirits that stand behind me and say, tell them, Channy. Tell them what happened to us. That's honoring life that was taken away. And I know that I myself have been both, receiving end as people are doing good things for me, and as a giving side. It means a lot. It will last generation. So, thank you.
Can I ask one? And I'm going to use my prowess as sitting right here to ask you one question. So you have done many things. You've had many careers, I like to say. You were an engineer, you were an actress, singer. There's so many things. And now you are a chef. And also an importer of foods from Cambodia as well. Angkor
food. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I started cooking because of my mother. So my mother was an orphan when she was 14 years old, and she never gone to school because back then, in the old country, a girl shouldn't go to school. You shouldn't be writing love notes. So, but when she's 14, she lost both parents. So she moved from home to home to take care of the family, cooking, and their children. And in one of those homes, the children taught her how to read and write. And but she's always loved cooking, and she was, you know, wonderful with food. And I would take her shopping and making hot sauce. And hot sauce is not to sell, but to give it to her niece and nephew and her friend who run out of it. And if you give it to, she give it to you, and if you run out of it, you said, "Auntie, you know, when are you gonna make hot sauce again?" "Right now." And then she would give to everybody again, even when you still have it. But when my mom passed away, I was in the dark, deep end. You know, I felt what she felt, and I wish I understand how you felt. And I wanted to do something. Before then, I wanted to publish a book about engineering, a system of system, how you can integrate two big systems together and all that. And then that's not important anymore.
That one.
And then our daughter called me from college and said, "Mom, do you remember how to make grandma hot sauce?" And I just started crying. I said, "Yes." And that's what I wanted to do. Carry her legacy, not to make money, but that's what she did, you know. She cooked for people. If she see you as dishes that you like. She remember everybody's favorite dish. And I said, that's what I do. I'll just make hot sauce and give it to my friend. Carry that tradition. And one of my friends refused to take it because she wanted to give it to her friend, her family in Texas as a Christmas gift. So she said, the only way I'm getting it is buying it from you. So that hot sauce lead to another sauce, and then another sauce, we get the award for Sophie Award from an international fancy food show. And that just kind of gave me the confidence, or false confidence, that I can make a success in food business. So I quit my engineering job and go into food. And we did a good job, and then we sell food service size paste, Cambodian cooking paste. But my job also gave me confidence working with FDA. Yeah, so, and we are actually the first Cambodian shelf-stable producer. So I made this big job, and huge company, they cook for cafeteria, for schools, university, and hospital. They order from us. We were so excited. I was so excited. And I'm thinking about my mom's recipe and all that. But then pandemic happened. So I said, I'm not going to throw away my food. I'm going to open a restaurant. One thing lead to another. We worked like crazy. You know, I think if my mom was with me, she would never let me do it. Because she didn't go to school. She was so proud of the fact that, you know, I got my master's degree in engineering. She would never let me stop doing that and come to cooking. And I think, to Alexis, thanks for reminding me, before the communists happened, before the genocide, I was terrible at math. It was awful. Cambodian school system, there's 30 people in the class. They rank you from 1 to 30. And I was always about 20. But when I came here, you know, I don't have anybody that I can count on. And I wanted to help my mother, you know. I don't want her to keep cleaning people's house. I wanted to give her what she didn't have. And the only way to do that was the practical thing. Not study history because my English is bad, but to study math. And even though my math was bad, I just keep going at it. One day at a time. And my story is to tell you that each one of us, you know, I'm not a hero, I'm not strong, but I have the drive to live for my mother, to work for my mother. And when you fight for people you love, you fight harder than you fight for yourself. And every one of us is much stronger than we think we are. I really believe in it. Thank you, Alexis.
It's very good hot sauce.
Oh. Yes.
Have you ever been back to Cambodia, and do you think it's the same as when you remember it
Oh, no.
before? Or
I've
will
never
they
gone
ever
back.
Oh, you've never gone back?
No. No, I never gone back. Our children is 32 and 30. They haven't gone either. And I keep pushing them to go with my sister or my brother. But they say they wait for me. And I don't think I will. I think it's, you know, each one of us experience the same situation and take it in at different impact. And I thought about going, but every time before I push the, you know, the buy button plane, I say, no, I can't do it. You know, I imagine I would be like a wreck, you know, when I get back there. But I'm proud of Cambodia. I'm proud of what we had. It's not like I hate what happened or hate the people. I am Cambodian. I'm proud of our culture. I just can't go back yet.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
What's the name of your restaurant?
Uncle Chef in San Jose. Yes. And I have my copy of my books here if you guys wanted to read more. So this picture is 2 months before the genocide started. I took this during Chinese New Year, which is in February, and then 2 months later, the communists took over, and my hair never grew for 4 years.
So you didn't have to cut it?
Never had to cut it.
Because
And
everyone had the same hair.
no, because my hair never grew.
But they cut everyone's.
They cut everyone, and
Will you tell
and-
them why?
Oh, it's literally to kind of humiliate you, to tell you that you can't control, you know, we have controlled everything about you. We can tell you what to do, we can, you know, but I remember feeling devastated, but at the same time when they come to me, they said, comrade, get up, because your hair's already, you don't need a haircut. And I remember within me, it was like a grin. I went from devastated that I have no hope left, I have no control of anything, to a grin. And that grin was, they can't control us 100%. In my case, my situation, don't allow them to humiliate me. So, looks like we have 10 minutes.
We have time for maybe one more question. Anyone has one? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. This might be like a very simple question, but I was just wondering how you felt when the Khmer Rouge were overthrown, like when it all ended. How did that feel for you?
Yeah. So the question is, how did I feel when the Khmer Rouge is overthrown? So the Khmer Rouge was overthrown by Vietnamese troops, right? And to me, I have mixed feeling because our history, Vietnamese and Cambodian don't get along. You know? So it's like Indian and cowboy. I'm just kidding.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong.
So I have mixed feeling because, okay, we have a rescue, but we don't really think, we don't really trust the rescuer. But it's still better than the way it was, because we're not going to last with the way the Khmer Rouge run the country. And also, on top of it, the rescuer is also a communist government. So it's like we're getting off one bus But it's like we're sitting in a bus, it's just different driver, go to the same destination. So that was not very helpful. But at the same time, when the Vietnamese took over, it created chaos, where the Vietnamese troop doesn't know which family is staying where, so they have no control of us. And the Khmer Rouge had no control of us. So we took that opportunity to escape the country. And in my case, I escaped twice. The first time, it's about 30 people, only like maybe 10 of us alive. And we decided to go back to the country. And many that did survivors died from not having enough water. So and a lot of time when we got here, we said, you know, if it wasn't the Vietnamese troop, we wouldn't survive. And there's some Cambodian who never experienced Khmer Rouge would be very mad at me. They said, how do you say it? Air your dirty laundry.
You're airing your dirty
Airing your dirty laundry. You shouldn't say bad thing about, you know. But it's fact. And in fact, you know, I don't feel like that anymore. Even though I was taught when I was little that Vietnamese and Cambodian was like enemy, from generation. I think people are people. I don't feel like that I stand up for when people are talking bad about other people. I stand up against them. I don't agree with them. You cannot stereotype, and nobody's perfect.
So please join me in thanking Channy once again. That you left with us to do no harm, to treat others with kindness, and make that promise to ourselves to do no harm. Thank you and have a good rest of your night. Also, if you are interested, there are books available for